I've started a new channel called Lanila Tales. Please subscribe and watch my best stories there. Link is in the description. The alien raised its plasma blade to my throat and whispered you were never supposed to know we exist and certainly not survive us. My living room smelled like burnt curtains and panic. I lay pinned under the remains of my coffee table, clutching a toaster like it was a legendary weapon of destiny. 30 seconds earlier I had just wanted a sandwich before bed. Now I was negotiating eye contact with something that had too many teeth and no understanding of personal space. It started 3 hours earlier when the sky began crackling with static like an old radio begging for attention. Reports came in about missing cows again from Old Man Jenkins' farm, who swore on his remaining tooth that flying saucers preferred dairy. I laughed at it while adjusting a broken antenna from my mostly failed weather machine. Apparently the universe heard my laughter as a challenge. My name is Ethan Cole, former scientist, current disappointment to my father and unofficial expert in bad luck. I lived alone in a creaky house filled with humming gadgets, unpaid bills, and a fridge that hissed when opened too fast. Around midnight my television turned on by itself, displaying strange symbols. Then the lights flickered out like they were too scared to stay. A low hum vibrated through the walls, making the spoons in the drawer rattle. I should have run. Instead I muttered, well, that is not ominous at all, and went to investigate armed with confidence and a stale bagel. The window shattered as two tall figures stepped into the room. They wore black armor that shimmered like oil spilled across water. Their eyes glowed icy blue, and their movements were too smooth to be human. They spoke in clicks and hisses before one activated a glowing blade from its wrist. Instinct took control. I threw the toaster. To be fair, it was the nearest object that was not nailed down. The toaster smacked the alien in the head with a metallic dong, causing it to stumble. I dove behind the couch and grabbed my latest invention, the electromagnetic containment field generator. It was untested, unstable, and powered by car batteries and hope. I slammed the button. A shimmering dome of crackling light enclosed one alien who screeched in what I could only assume was intergalactic outrage. The second alien lunged at me, knocking books and my dignity to the floor. We wrestled like drunk raccoons in a dumpster until I managed to kick it backward into my aquarium. Fish flew. Water splashed. The alien short-circuited and collapsed. Panting, soaked, and questioning all life choices, I stood before the trapped alien. It glared with cold fury. I stepped closer and demanded, "Who sent you?" The alien paused, chest heaving, then rasped, "Earth." The word echoed in my head louder than the storm outside. Earth? Who on earth sends aliens to kill someone like me? Before I could ask more, the creature collapsed unconscious. I called 911. They hung up believing it was a prank involving fish and invaders. 5 minutes later black vans screeched outside. Men in dark suits stormed in, confiscating everything including my half-eaten sandwich. One tall agent with slicked back hair approached me. "Ethan Cole," he said. "You are coming with us." I asked, "Am I under arrest or getting a free vacation?" He replied something in between. They loaded me into a vehicle that smelled like coffee and government secrets. I stared out the window as my house disappeared behind us, flashing lights painting the night sky. My mind raced. Earth sent assassins after me. Why? Because of my late rent, because I ruined the science fair in high school, because I tried to patent laser-powered lawn mowers. No one answered. They brought me to an underground facility miles beneath the city. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as agents whispered into earpieces. They locked me in a sterile room with a table, 2 chairs, and a mirror that definitely had people behind it judging my hair. After an hour, the door opened. A woman walked in. Dark suit, cold eyes, expression carved from stone. She sat down without a word. "Agent Monroe," she finally said. "You are lucky to be alive." I replied, "I survive on instant noodles and regret. Death fears me." She did not laugh. Instead, she slid a photo across the table. My living room. My broken window. The trapped alien. "How did you contain it?" she asked. "With science and reckless optimism," I answered. She frowned. "The alien is gone. Escaped during transport." My heart dropped. Great. The universe wanted a sequel. Then Monroe leaned forward. Those assassins were not rogue. Someone hired them. And you, Ethan, accidentally intercepted a classified transmission 3 days ago with your homemade antenna. Someone decided you knew too much. I blinked. I thought I was listening to whale songs. She sighed. That was a diplomatic signal from an off-world council. You decoded part of it without realizing. Now multiple governments want to shut you up permanently. Before I could process the fact that I was not crazy, alarms blared across the facility. Red lights flashed. Someone shouted, "Breach Sector 4." Monroe grabbed her gun. "Stay here," she ordered, and left. Naturally, I did the opposite. I snuck out, following the chaos. Soldiers ran past me. At the far end of a corridor, I saw the trapped alien limping, dragging itself through a doorway. Beyond it lay a dark hangar filled with strange crafts. It paused, turned its glowing eyes toward me, and spoke one final word before vanishing into the ship fog. Soon. I stood alone, surrounded by confusion, fear, and the faint smell of burning wires. Whatever was happening was bigger than me, bigger than Earth even. Someone from my own planet had started a war in the shadows. And somehow I was right in the middle of it, clutching a toaster, and wondering if this counted as character development. Agent Monroe found me leaning against the wall of the corridor, looking like I had just insulted a microwave and lost the argument. She grabbed my arm and dragged me back to the interrogation room before anyone noticed I was missing. Her eyes narrowed with the kind of disappointment usually reserved for someone who microwaves metal on purpose. "Did you follow a giant alien down a restricted hallway?" she asked. I considered lying, but the damp socks and fish smell from earlier made it obvious I had no control over my life decisions. "Yes," I said. She closed her eyes briefly. "Wonderful. Now you are involved." They moved me to another room, this one fancier but still lacking snacks or basic comfort. Monroe sat across from me again, less like she wanted to arrest me and more like she wanted to return me for a refund. "Project Whisper," she said quietly, as if the walls might gossip. "It began decades ago. After the first alien signal was detected, world leaders met in secret and agreed to keep it hidden to avoid chaos. They made deals with peaceful extraterrestrials. Technology in exchange for secrecy and cooperation. At first it worked. No wars, no invasions. Just quiet collaboration. Then things changed." I asked, "Changed how?" and she stared at the table. "Someone in power on Earth decided peace was no longer profitable. They wanted control, fear, power. They broke the deal. And when the Alien Council discovered the betrayal, they sent envoys to negotiate. But someone here set a trap and blamed the aliens for an attack. Now both sides are preparing for war." My brain tried to process all of this while still stuck on the fact I had unpaid electricity bills. Before I could respond, the door opened and 2 large guards entered, carrying a metal case. Inside lay a small device, smooth silver with glowing blue lines like veins. "Monroe said this was found in your house. It was attached to one of the assassins. The device contains a stored command order. We decrypted part of it." She pressed a button and a projection appeared above the table, showing symbols merged with English words. "Target Ethan Cole, eliminate. Contract origin Earth, government internal." My stomach dropped so fast it might have reached the core by now. Someone on Earth officially ordered my execution. "Why would anyone in the government want me dead?" I asked quietly. "Because you received the signal and decoded it," Monroe replied. "They thought you knew everything." I wanted to scream that I barely knew how to file my taxes. But before I could express my deep confusion or panic, a loud knock echoed through the room. The door opened and a tall man in a darker suit than anyone else stepped in. Gray hair, sharp features, and eyes like frostbite. This was a man who had not smiled since the invention of bread. "Ethan Cole," he said. "I am Director Hawthorne. You have caused a substantial mess." I raised a hand like a guilty school kid. "In my defense," I said, "the alien started it." Hawthorne was not amused. He informed me that I was to be escorted to a safe house for protection. Protection from assassins, agents, and possibly myself. Monroe was assigned to watch me, which was great because nothing says safety like someone who looked at me like I was a defective toaster. We left the underground facility before dawn in a black SUV that made no sound. The city was still asleep, unaware that somewhere above their breakfast cereal a secret war was brewing. On the way I asked Monroe what the plan was. "Survive," she answered. "Very inspiring," I muttered. She added, "We need to find proof of who ordered the attack and stop them before they ignite a war with the Alien Council. If they succeed, Earth will not win." At the safe house, which was less house and more concrete bunker with curtains, I tried to settle in. I paced around while Monroe went over files and maps on a table covered in coffee cups. I looked at one paper showing a list of names connected to Project Whisper. At the top was a name I knew too well. General Marcus Cole. My father. I felt the air leave my lungs. My father, who never believed in my inventions, who thought aliens belonged only in cheap movies. He was involved in this. Monroe noticed my expression. "You know him," she said. "He is my father," I replied. Her eyes widened slightly for the first time since I met her. "This complicates things," she said. I laughed in that unstable way people do when their world collapses and they do not have snacks. "Complicate is an understatement." She asked if I could talk to him. I said sure, if he answers my calls and not just sends me inspirational army quotes. Before we could form a plan, alarms blared across the safe house. Red light pulsed through the ceiling. Monroe drew her gun, motioning me to get behind her. I hid behind a couch that offered as much protection as a wet napkin. The main door exploded inward and black armored soldiers stormed in. Not aliens this time, but humans with advanced weapons and no chill. Monroe returned fire while pulling me toward a back exit. I tripped over my own feet and landed face first into a shoe rack. We stumbled into a garage where a black motorcycle waited. Monroe handed me a helmet. "Put it on if you want to continue breathing," she said. I did not argue. We sped out into the morning light, while bullets pinged against the metal door behind us. Wind slapped my face and panic clung to my soul like static. After an hour of driving through back roads and abandoned industrial areas, we finally stopped in an old scrapyard. Monroe parked behind a pile of rusted cars. I ripped off the helmet, gasping for air. "Who are they?" I asked. She checked her weapon. "Private military under Senator Charles Voss. He recently took control of Project Whisper. He wants the aliens gone and absolute control on Earth. And he thinks killing you will cover his tracks." "So Earth really did send assassins after me," I said. "Yes," she replied, "and if we do not stop him, he will send armies next." The weight of her words sat heavy on my chest. I thought about my father, about aliens, about almost dying 3 times in the last 12 hours. I looked at Monroe and said, "Then we need to find answers. And maybe a sandwich." She almost smiled. "First answers," she said. "Then sandwiches." As we walked deeper into the scrapyard to hide, my mind replayed the moment the alien said Earth. The world I thought I knew was collapsing, but somewhere inside a spark of something else lit up. Determination, fear, maybe even courage or indigestion. I was no hero, but I was not going to let my planet start a war born of lies. Not if I could help it. The scrapyard smelled like rust, burnt oil, and morning regret. We crouched behind a wrecked bus while Monroe checked her phone for signals. None. Either we were safe or about to be vaporized. I sat on an old tire, trying to ignore the fact that my life had turned into a sci-fi thriller written by someone who hates sleep. My stomach growled loudly, reminding me I had not eaten since that disastrous sandwich attempt before aliens ruined my evening. My mind kept replaying everything. Assassins, Project Whisper, my father being part of it, and a senator who wanted to start a war just to get a promotion. As far as Mondays went, this was extra special. Monroe, precise as ever, spread documents across a rusted car hood. She explained our situation with the enthusiasm of someone reading tax instructions. Senator Voss was planning something big. And he was using a rogue faction of the military to do it. To stop him, we needed allies. Specifically, one who could connect us with the Alien Council before Voss launched his attack. "So who do we talk to?" I asked. She hesitated before saying a name. Zara. She is not exactly official. Or human. My eyebrows nearly escaped my face. You want me to meet another alien? I asked. She nodded. One that likes Earth. Mostly. We left the scrapyard in an old pickup truck that probably failed all safety inspections since 1987. Monroe drove. I held on to the dashboard like it was a life raft, while she swerved through traffic with military confidence. We arrived in a small town that looked too peaceful to be involved in galactic politics. Its quiet streets and sleepy shops felt wrong considering the fate of Earth might depend on them. Monroe parked outside a tiny cafe called Cosmic Beans. The sign had a smiling coffee cup with antennae. Subtle. Inside smelled like burnt coffee and nervous energy. Behind the counter stood a young woman with messy dark hair tied in a loose bun and eyes that shimmered slightly violet under the dim lights. She wore an apron that read "Try our alien blend." She smiled when she saw Monroe. "You are late. And you brought the human." She looked at me like I was a mildly interesting bug. I waved. "Hi. Ethan. Almost died 3 times recently. Room for improvement." She snorted. "Charming." Zara was her name. She led us to a back room that looked like storage, but also doubled as a secret base. Blueprints, maps, and alien tech lay scattered on shelves and crates. She poured coffee for us which tasted like burnt toast mixed with secrets. "So what disaster brought you here?" she asked, lounging in a chair. Monroe explained everything from the assassins to Voss to how I accidentally decoded an alien diplomatic signal. Zara listened quietly, her expression shifting from amusement to concern. When Monroe mentioned Voss preparing for a false flag attack on alien envoys, Zara stood abruptly. "If he succeeds, the Council will retaliate. They will not hold back. And believe me, your planet is not ready." I swallowed hard. "So we stop him." "Simple, right?" She gave me a look. "You are either brave or stupid." "I am still deciding." "Probably both," I said. Monroe asked if Zara could contact the Alien Council. Zara nodded slowly. "I can get a message through. But I need a location, proof, and a reason they should believe a human who builds weaponized toasters." We spent the next few hours planning. Zara hacked communication lines using a device that looked like a blender plugged into a laptop. She traced encrypted transmissions back to Voss' private compound in the city. According to intercepted messages, he was hosting a secret meeting tonight with military officials to finalize plans for an attack on alien envoys in Geneva. If we could infiltrate, record his confession and escape, we might prevent war. Or die horribly. Both options seemed equally likely. During a break, I sat near the window watching people stroll outside sipping coffee, unaware the world teetered on cosmic chaos. Zara sat beside me. "You are quiet," she said. "Processing trauma," I replied lightly. "That and thinking about my father." Zara nodded slowly. "You want to know if he is a villain or a fool? That is the thing about humans. You all want answers to make things neat. The universe is not neat. Sometimes people you love make terrible choices. Does not mean they cannot choose differently tomorrow." I looked at her, surprised at the wisdom hidden beneath sarcasm and caffeine. Evening crept in, painting the sky orange and purple. Zara handed me a small metallic earpiece. "It will translate languages and let us communicate silently," she said. Monroe handed me a gun. "Do not point it at yourself or me," she warned. I tucked it into my jacket and instantly regretted all life decisions. We left the cafe, heading toward the city. Zara drove this time in a hover-capable vehicle disguised as an old van. She flicked a switch and for a moment the wheels lifted silently before returning to the ground. "Just a little upgrade," she said when I stared. The city at night glowed with neon signs and distant sirens. Voss compound towered over the skyline, wrapped in security drones and shimmering barriers. We parked in an alley and Zara activated cloaking suits stored in the van. The suits were skin-tight, cold to the touch, and made us nearly invisible. I looked at myself and saw only faint outlines. Creepy but convenient. We slipped past guards, security scanners, and a very bored dog who sniffed the air in confusion. Inside the compound, marble floors and golden walls gleamed under soft light. Monroe led the way, scanning corners while Zara disabled cameras with a flick of her wrist. Voices echoed from a conference hall. We crouched behind a pillar and listened. Senator Voss stood at a long table addressing generals and advisors. His voice was cold and calm. The alien envoys arrive in Geneva tomorrow. Our strike team will attack them disguised as extraterrestrials. Humanity will unite against a common enemy. Martial law will be declared. Order will be restored under my leadership. My hands curled into fists. He was going to start an intergalactic war for power. Zara quietly activated a small drone that recorded everything. A guard suddenly turned our way. His eyes narrowed. He moved closer. My heart hammered. Monroe signaled me not to move. The guard paused right beside us, staring at where we crouched. The room felt silent except for my pulse. Then shouts erupted from down the hall. Intruders in the West Wing, someone yelled. The guard turned and ran, leaving us. Monroe whispered, "We need to go now." Zara grabbed the drone and we slipped back into the hall as alarms began blaring. Red lights pulsed. Guards swarmed. We ran, boots thudding against marble. Zara led us through an emergency exit just as the cloaking suits sputtered, then died. We dashed into the courtyard under a sky swirling with storm clouds. A gunshot rang out. I turned and saw Voss on the balcony, eyes blazing with rage. His soldiers aimed at us. Before they could fire, Zara threw a small orb at the ground. It exploded in a flash of blinding light. We ran through the gates, jumped into the van and tore into the streets as sirens wailed behind us. I sat shaking, clutching the drone. We had proof. But now the whole world, or at least the part that wanted me dead, knew exactly where we were. As the city lights faded behind us, I realized something terrifying and thrilling. I was no longer just running for my life. I was fighting for it. For Earth. For peace. For the slim chance that maybe, just maybe, we could stop a war before it began. Rain hammered against the windshield as we sped through the city outskirts in Zara's disguised van. The stolen drone sat in my lap, still humming softly like it knew it held the fate of the world in its tiny circuits. Monroe drove in tense silence, her knuckles white around the steering wheel. Zara kept glancing at the rearview mirror as if a fleet of alien warships might suddenly appear behind us. My heart pounded with a rhythm that did not match the engine. I could not stop thinking about what we had just heard. Senator Voss was not planning war. He was manufacturing it. We finally pulled into an abandoned service station hidden behind overgrown trees and broken signs. The building looked like a place where horror movies were filmed and people made poor decisions. We slipped inside. The air smelled of mold and dust. Monroe sealed the door with a digital lock while Zara set the drone on a table and began extracting the data. I paced back and forth, trying to keep my thoughts from spiraling. Then Monroe said quietly, "We cannot do this alone. We need someone with authority, someone who was inside Project Whisper from the beginning. Someone who will listen." She did not have to say his name. I already knew. My father. General Marcus Cole. I sank onto an old crate. "He will never talk to me," I muttered. "He barely talks to me on my birthday." Monroe looked at me steadily. "You are his son. And you are the only one he might not shoot on sight." Zara added, "Unless he has changed his hobbies recently." My stomach twisted, but I nodded. If we had any chance of stopping Voss, we needed my father. The next morning, Zara arranged a transport through one of her underground contacts. A cargo plane hidden in a private hangar. We flew across state lines under false identities. The plane smelled like metal and old sandwiches, but it stayed in the air, and that was all I needed from it. I spent most of the flight staring out the window, wondering what I would say to my father. "Hey Dad, sorry I disappointed you, but can you help me stop a human-alien war?" did not sound like a solid opener. We landed near a secluded military base where my father had retired years ago. He owned a property nearby, a farmhouse surrounded by trees and silence. As we approached it in a borrowed jeep, my palms started sweating so badly I thought I might short-circuit the dashboard. Whether it was fear or unresolved childhood trauma, I could not tell. Monroe parked the Jeep a few meters away and handed me a small communicator. "If things go wrong, we will come in," she said. "Try not to make things go wrong." I took a deep breath and stepped out, walking toward the front porch. The door opened before I could knock. My father stood there, tall as ever, hair grayer than I remembered, eyes sharp and unreadable. "Ethan," he said. No hello, no hug, just my name like a statement and a question all at once. "Hi, Dad," I said quietly. "We need to talk." He looked past me toward the trees where Monroe and Zara waited unseen. Then he stepped aside. "Come in." My legs felt like jelly as I entered the house. It smelled of coffee and old books. He led me to the kitchen and poured 2 cups of coffee. "You are in trouble," he said simply. "Yeah," I replied. "Pretty big trouble, actually. Assassins, aliens, the usual." I told him everything. The attack at my house. Project Whisper. Senator Voss. The plan to attack the envoys in Geneva. He listened without interrupting, gripping his mug so tightly his knuckles turned white. When I finished, he stood silently for a long time. Finally, he said, "Voss was always ambitious, but I did not think he would go this far." I asked, "Were you part of this from the beginning?" He sighed heavily. "Yes. I was there when Project Whisper started. We truly believed we were protecting Earth. But when the deals turned darker, I resigned. Voss saw opportunity where I saw a line we should never cross." Anger stirred in me. "Why did you not tell me?" He met my eyes. "To protect you." I laughed bitterly. "Well, that worked out great." He looked older in that moment, as if the weight of his choices had finally caught up. I asked, "Will you help us?" For a second I thought he would refuse. Instead he said, "I will not let Voss destroy everything. You will have my help." Relief flooded me. I stepped forward wanting to hug him, but he simply nodded toward the back door. "Bring your friends inside. It is not safe out there." Monroe and Zara entered cautiously. My father eyed Zara for a moment, then said, "You are not human." She replied, "Only on weekdays." He almost smiled. It was the closest I had seen in years. We set up in his study filled with maps, files, and old military memorabilia. Zara connected the drone to his computer. The recording played Senator Voss' voice echoing through the room as he detailed the false attack plan. My father cursed under his breath. "This is treason. This is madness." Monroe said, "We need to expose him before the summit in Geneva." My father nodded. "There is a secure military channel that broadcasts directly to the United Nations Security Council. If we can get this recording on that line, the truth will be out before he can stop it. But it is heavily guarded. And Voss controls most of the access points." I asked, "So how do we get in?" He looked at me the same way he did when teaching me to ride a bike. With precision. And a little recklessness. We formed a plan. My father would use his old clearance codes to access a decommissioned military comms station a few miles away. If we could reach it and upload the recording, the world would hear the truth. The catch was simple. Voss would know immediately and send forces to stop us. Zara said, "Sounds fun?" I said, "Sounds terrible." My father said, "Sounds necessary." That evening, as we prepared to leave, we ate dinner at the old farmhouse table. It was silent except for the clinking of forks. At one point my father said, "You have changed, Ethan." I replied, "You are still bad at feelings." He almost smiled again. For a moment it felt like family. A very dysfunctional one, but family nonetheless. Then headlights flashed outside. A single black car rolled toward the house. We dropped our forks. My father stood up calmly. "Stay here," he said, and walked to the door. He stepped outside. 2 men in suits approached him. One spoke, but I could not hear. My father's hand moved to his sidearm. The men reached inside their jackets. Monroe whispered, "It is a trap." Before anyone could move, gunfire exploded across the yard. My father dove behind a stone wall, returning fire. Monroe dragged me down as glass shattered. Zara yelled, "We have to go now." Smoke filled the room. I looked toward the window where my father was still fighting. Whether he lived or died I did not know. All I knew was that war had arrived at our doorstep and there was no turning back. Gunfire cracked through the air like thunder as chaos unfolded around my father's house. The night glowed with flashes of muzzle fire, and every shadow felt alive. Monroe pushed me to the floor while Zara dove toward the hallway, grabbing her alien tech like it was a lifeline. I could hear my father outside barking orders and firing back, his voice steady even as bullets tore through wooden beams and shattered glass. My lungs burned with the taste of smoke and fear. Everything in me wanted to crawl under the table and stay there forever, but Zara grabbed my arm and hauled me up. "If we do not leave now, we will not get another chance," she said. My heart sank because she was right. Monroe kicked open the back door and motioned for us to run. We sprinted into the trees behind the house, branches whipping at our faces. Behind us, gunfire continued louder, harsher, like a storm with no rain. I glanced back once and saw my father, still firing, still standing. Then the trees swallowed him and the house disappeared from view. I did not know if he would survive. I did not let myself stop to think about it. If I did, I might never move again. The cold night air stung my face as we ran deeper into the forest, trying to outpace death. We reached a dirt road where an old utility vehicle Monroe had hidden earlier waited under a tarp. She yanked it off, jumped into the driver's seat, and started the engine with a growl. "Get in," she shouted. Zara and I scrambled into the back. My hands trembled as I clutched the seat. We sped down the road, tires throwing mud into the dark. No one spoke. There was nothing to say except what we were all afraid to voice. My father might be dead. Voss now knew where we were. And the summit in Geneva was less than 24 hours away. After miles of silence, Monroe finally spoke. "We continued the mission. Your father knew the risks. He wanted us to move forward." Her voice did not waver, but I could see her jaw clenched tight. Zara was adjusting a flickering holographic map on her wrist. "We have one route left," she said. "The old mountain comms station. If we can broadcast the recording from there, it will go global. But Voss knows about us now. He will send everything he has." I looked at the drone in my lap, its small light blinking steadily. It held Voss' confession. Proof of betrayal. Proof of war. Proof of everything worth dying for and everything we could still save. By dawn we reached the edge of a mountain range, jagged peaks stabbing into the pale morning sky. Monroe parked the vehicle behind an abandoned ranger station. We bundled what gear we had left. The trek to the comms facility would have to be on foot. No vehicles could make it up the narrow rocky path. The mountains loomed like silent witnesses, cold and indifferent to our danger. I pulled my jacket tighter, trying to ignore how numb my fingers felt. As we hiked the path, the morning sun bled into the sky in streaks of orange and gold. For a few seconds it almost looked peaceful. Zara walked ahead, scanning the surroundings with an alien device. Monroe was behind her, eyes sharp, weapon drawn. I trudged behind them, my thoughts drifting to my father. What if I never saw him again? What if my last words to him had been something stupid? My throat tightened. I shoved the thoughts away. Not now. Not yet. We reached the comms station by midday. It stood like a skeleton of metal and glass perched on the edge of a cliff. A massive satellite dish towered above it, rusted but intact. The building itself was abandoned, windows dusty, wires exposed like veins. Monroe forced the door open. Inside smelled of old electronics and cold air. Lights flickered weakly as she powered the system with a backup generator. Zara set the drone onto the central console and began transferring the recording. "Hurry," I said, even though I knew they already were. Zara did not look up. "I am going as fast as physics allows and slightly faster." Monroe kept watch at the window, her expression tense. I could see movement far down the mountain road. Dark vehicles. Drones in the sky. Voss soldiers were coming like a flood of metal and rage. Zara's voice broke through the tension. "Upload at 70%. Just hold them off for a few minutes." "Hold them off," I said incredulously. With what harsh language and my uneven cardio! Monroe tossed me a rifle. "With this." I grabbed it with trembling hands. Outside, soldiers were spreading across the mountain, moving like dark ants against gray stone. Then the first shot rang out. Monroe returned fire. The battle had begun. Zara crouched near the console, muttering to herself as alarms beeped. 90%. Almost there. My pulse pounded so hard it hurt. I fired into the chaos. My shots were wild, clumsy, but I saw at least one soldier dive for cover. Energy blasts from alien rifles hissed past us. One struck the wall inches from my head, leaving a smoking hole. The air smelled of ozone and fear. Monroe took down a drone with one clean shot. Zara yelled, "Upload complete." It is live. The recording is being broadcast to every major network and secure embassy channel. Voss is exposed. Relief flooded me like a tidal wave. But it lasted only a second. Monroe shouted, "They are still coming. We need to go." Zara grabbed the drone and smashed part of the console to keep Voss' men from shutting it down. We ran out the back exit as bullets shattered glass behind us. The path wound along the edge of a cliff. One wrong step and we would plummet into the abyss. Wind roared like a living thing, almost pushing us off the edge. As we ran, explosions echoed behind us. The calm station was burning. I could see soldiers still firing even as flames engulfed the building. Ahead the path split. Monroe chose the left route. Then voices shouted from above. A helicopter appeared out of the clouds. It bore no military insignia. Instead, it was sleek silver. Alien. A ramp lowered and a voice came through my earpiece. "Hurry. This is your only chance." Zara grabbed my arm. "That is the Council extraction ship," she said. "They must have heard the broadcast." Monroe nodded. We sprinted toward the hovering craft. Soldiers emerged from the trees firing relentlessly. Bullets and plasma alike sizzled past us. Monroe shoved me forward, yelling, "Do not stop." My legs burned. My lungs screamed. We jumped onto the ramp just as it began to rise. Monroe turned and fired one last shot. A plasma bolt hit her in the shoulder. She stumbled, but Zara and I pulled her inside. The ramp closed and the ship shot into the sky. The ground shrank below us, the burning calm station like a dying ember. My chest heaved. My head spun. But we were alive. And the truth was out. As the ship soared higher through the clouds, I slumped against the wall, exhausted. Zara knelt beside Monroe, treating her wound with a glowing alien spray. I stared at the sky, wondering where we were heading, what waited for us, and whether my father had survived the night. Below us, Earth turned slowly, unaware that the war had been stopped before it even began, and that a bigger journey was about to start. Clouds parted like curtains as the alien ship pierced the upper atmosphere. The cabin hummed softly with unfamiliar technology, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the world seemed quiet. Monroe sat beside me, her shoulder wrapped in a glowing bandage, jaw clenched but determined. Zara busied herself with a console, speaking softly into a translator that turned her alien words into human ones. I sat across from them, staring at Earth shrinking below us. My chest was tight, not with fear this time, but with a strange mixture of relief and uncertainty. We stopped a war, or at least delayed it. The recording had gone public. Voss was exposed. But the silence in the cabin told me we were not done. Not yet. The ship docked inside a larger vessel floating just beyond the atmosphere. Smooth silver corridors stretched ahead of us, glowing gently with a light that had no source. Alien officers awaited our arrival, their faces calm but unreadable, their uniforms elegant and marked with symbols I could not decipher. They led us to a chamber overlooking Earth through a massive window. My planet hung there in the void like a blue marble, delicate and alone. A tall alien figure stepped forward, skin like polished stone and eyes deep as the night sky. This was Counselor Rayalon, one of the leaders of the Alien Council. His voice resonated in the air without sound, translated through a device on his chest. "You have risked much to bring us the truth, Ethan Cole." I swallowed hard. "You sent assassins to kill me," I said before I could stop myself. The counselor tilted his head. "We did not. Those assassins were dispatched by a rogue faction on your world, using our technology without our permission. They were funded, trained, and ordered by human leadership who feared peace more than war. My mind spun. If not the aliens, then who exactly gave the order? The counselor turned to Zara. She stepped forward and answered quietly. It was the Earth's Shadow Division, led by Senator Voss and a handful of militarists. They forged orders, manipulated alien mercenaries, and framed the council. They wanted war to gain control. A wave of anger and confusion surged through me. All this time I thought I was hunted by aliens. But it was humans. My own planet trying to erase me. Counselor Raylon stepped closer. However, Ethan Cole, we did send observers. Not to kill. To watch. You and your actions have now placed you at the center of something far greater than you know. I rubbed my eyes. Great. More pressure. Just what I needed. Monroe stood beside me, arms folded. What happens now? She asked. Raylon looked at her. The summit in Geneva will proceed. Now that the truth is out, both our worlds must choose. Peace or destruction. And Ethan will speak on behalf of humanity. I nearly choked. I am not a diplomat. I barely pass public speaking. Raylon did not blink. You do not speak for governments. You speak for people. For the ones who are afraid and for the ones who hope. That is what matters now. Zara smirked. Congratulations. You are now the unofficial ambassador of chaos and sandwiches. I glared at her, but a tiny smile tugged at my lips. It faded quickly when I remembered my father. Before I could ask, Monroe placed a hand on my shoulder. We received a transmission while you were unconscious. Your father survived. He fought them off until reinforcements arrived. He is alive. The weight in my chest loosened. For the first time since this nightmare began, I could breathe. We were given quarters to rest, though rest was impossible. The summit was only hours away. Zara found me sitting by the window again, watching Earth. Scared? She asked. Terrified, I said. She sat beside me. Good. Means you will not do anything stupid. Or you will. Which is also entertaining. I laughed despite myself. I thought of everything we had been through. The assassins. The farmhouse. The mountain. The fire. And now this. The fate of two worlds balanced on the words of a guy who once failed a toaster repair exam. When morning came, the ship descended into the skies above Geneva. The summit building glittered near the lake, surrounded by armored vehicles and news satellites. Crowds gathered outside with signs, some welcoming peace, others shouting for war. We landed behind the summit hall. Armed guards and alien envoys walked side by side for the first time in history. My nerves tangled into knots. Inside, world leaders sat around a massive circular table, faces grim and tired. Cameras recorded everything. The Alien Council occupied the opposite side, their presence calm, almost serene. I stood at the center with Monroe and Zara behind me. Counselor Raylon gestured. Speak. I stepped forward. My hands shook. My heart hammered. I looked around at hundreds of eyes waiting. I spoke anyway. Not like a politician. Not like a soldier. But like a human who was tired of fear. I told them what I saw. The lies. The greed. The false war Voss had planned. I told them aliens did not come here to invade but to warn. That Earth was tearing itself apart not because of monsters from the sky, but because of monsters wearing suits and shaking hands. I told them I was just a man with a broken toaster and bad luck, but if I could stand there and say no more, then so could they. I spoke of peace, not as an ideal, but as a choice. A hard one. A necessary one. The room was silent. No applause. Just silence. Then slowly, one leader stood. Then another. And another. Agreements were signed. War was halted. Voss was arrested minutes later trying to flee the country. Counselor Raylon turned to me and said the future begins today. Later, as the sun set over the lake, I stood outside the summit hall. Zara sipped terrible coffee. Monroe leaned against the railing, her arms still bandaged. My father arrived in a car, weary but alive. He stepped toward me. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then he placed a hand on my shoulder. "I am proud of you," he said simply. The words were heavy with emotion unspoken. I nodded, unable to speak. The stars began to appear in the sky, and above them somewhere an alien ship waited peacefully. For once, the world felt quiet. Not because everything was fixed, but because we had chosen to try. And that was enough. I knew things would not be perfect. Politics would return. Fear would too. But so would hope. And responsibility. Maybe even better toasters. We walked back toward the summit hall together. Monroe, Zara, my father, and me. A strange little team brought together by chaos and stubbornness. I looked at the sky one more time. If aliens ever came knocking again, I hoped it would be for coffee. And maybe this time, the toaster would work.